Well, it starts off as a simple mission, quickly turned into an unforeseeable tragedy in one of the most shocking episodes so far that continues to show how much the show continues to evolve. Hey guys, come over for Shadowhunters, Season 2, Episode 4, Day of Wrath, and holy shit, what an episode. I mean, going into this episode, I really didn't know how this episode was going to be, especially after the way last episode left off. There was a lot of, unresolved things in that episode, and I didn't really know where we were headed with this episode. But damn, what an episode was. I mean, this was by far easily the best episode of the season. Without a doubt, the most shocking thing I think Shadowhunters has done. I can't believe they really went into this direction. And I'm more surprised they did it so early in the season. But it actually has benefited the season. I think it makes things that much more interesting. It ups the stakes, it ups the tension, and I mean, this is definitely the most intense episode we've ever had, but let's just get into this episode because this was definitely really crazy. A lot of incredible things going on here, so let's just get into it. So we start off and we see Clary. She wants to visit Jace at his cell in the City of Bones because she wants to see how he's doing, and it took her a while to finally get to him, but he's imprisoned and awaiting trial for treason after his actions in previous episodes, and she's trying to get through to him, and this whole time, we don't know if Aldertree actually is on Jace's side or not, if he plans on getting Jace out, or what really his motive really is, but he's determined that she needs to stay away from him, and I've said it before, that's the main thing of this season, that Clary and Jace cannot be together. They need to be as far apart from each other as possible, because Jace knows that he's just not safe around her. I mean, she's not safe around him, and he's really not safe around her. They're both going on their separate journeys, and they need to, do it together. So, he talks about how Valentine's gonna hurt her if she doesn't. He's also clearly hurting over the feelings that he clearly does still have for her, and that's something that we definitely do touch upon in this episode, which becomes a little bit more important later, but while he's in the cell, he has a nightmare that Clary comes to see him again, and he stabs her when she gets too close, and he wakes up, he discovers that Hodge is actually in the next cell, and the other man warns him not to sleep while he's there, and the Silent Brothers, he explains, haunt their dreams in order to torture them further. He's commented that he won't be broken by this place the way that Hodge was and so many other people were, but only time will tell, and honestly, I could very much seeing this prison break Jace. I mean, it seems like this prison really messes with your mind. I think that already is kind of happening to Jace, especially with all the information that he's gotten, just now gotten privy to. Definitely, I think it's going to start to mess with his mind a bit, but eventually Jace is brought to trial where he has to hold the Soul Sword and answer questions that Aldertree presents to him, and while holding the sword, he cannot tell a lie, which was a really cool plot device. I like the way that that was done, that he's not able to lie, so we know that Jace is forced to tell the entire truth, and he asks whether he's killed Gretel, and he answers that he did not, but does confirm that he captured her for Valentine. So I like that we know that he actually didn't kill her, that Valentine killed her, I guess to protect his son, because he just knew that he couldn't go through with it, which he actually takes responsibility for, that he definitely was part of it, and you can see the guilt looming in him, and that definitely does go with a lot of what Jace's arc has been so far this season. But Aldertree passes Jace further and asks about his love for Clary, and this is definitely something that is quite questionable, because we know that Jace and Clary are in fact brother and sister. They never really stopped loving each other. It gets Jace to actually admit that what he feels for her isn't the sort of love a brother should feel for a sister. He actually really does love Clary, and that's understandable. Those two were really connecting before Valentine revealed to them, the truth. And it's more than that. He doesn't really know exactly what it is. He just knows this is not the kind of love that a brother should feel for a sister. And again, that's understandable because he's felt like she's, more of a love interest than a sister for a much longer than he has that she's a sister. So he's also asked whether he thinks Valentine's ideas are wrong, and he says yes and no. And again, this really does show how conflicted he really is. On one hand, he feels his ideas are misguided, and that, yes, what Valentine is doing is wrong, but he also seen Camille's Vampire's Den full of tortured mundanes, and he blames the Clave for not taking more action against the Downworlders in that regard. And I honestly would agree with Jace that, yeah, what Valentine is doing is trying to make a statement. He's trying to get the Clave to take action because they're really not. And He's then asked to pledge unconditional loyalties to the Clave, but he just can't do that because he knows that in the end, he's not going to be loyal. His loyalty right now and main allegiance is to Valentine, and that is who he needs to keep serving to, so he can't do it. Aldertree declares he will recommend a life imprisonment for Jace, and Jace almost immediately tries to kill himself with the Soul Sword. This was a crazy scene, but yeah, Jace is ready to kill himself because I think he knows what he's becoming. He knows the darkness that he's about to endure, and he just doesn't want to take it, and he is stopped by one of the Silent Brothers, and it looks like he actually may be sentenced to a life sentence of mental torture after all, but luckily Valentine and his men actually fight their way into the City of Bones. Valentine tries to convince Jace to go with him of his own accord. Jace refuses, but Valentine orders him to be taken with them anyway, and Hodge manages to grab the Soul Sword from one of Valentine's guys, but it actually is used against him, and he's killed, like, immediately. That was pretty crazy to see. I didn't think that Hodge was going to get killed that easily, but he was, and, you know, we know that Hodge has kind of been, he's been working with Valentine for a while now, and I was a little bit surprised to see that, but I understand why. Hodge hasn't had that big of a part this season, but it's eventually revealed that Dot actually helped him with the raid, and that Valentine thanks her for turning his sword on his own son, and Jace dares him to kill him, but he actually doesn't, and it's because, of course, as we know, Valentine just wants to keep, you know, putting the salts in the wound more and more and more, and he instead his men orders to kill Aldertree, who was used in order to break in, and when Aldertree tells Jace to get the sword from his father before he steps into a portal, Jace instead actually chooses to save Aldertree, and I think he knows that Aldertree kind of knows what, you know, what's best for the Institute. Even though he doesn't really agree with Aldertree's ways of interrogation and his methods, I think he knows deep down that Aldertree really is trying to do a good thing, and Valentine actually does escape with the weapon, leaving Jace and Aldertree alone, and who knows really where that's going to go. But that's only one part of a much bigger episode than that, and let's just get into the other stuff, because damn is there still a lot more to talk about. Because, yes, I've stated that I think Jace's arc is the strongest arc of the season. However, that changes in this episode. I think every arc really becomes just as great in this one, because we see this conversation going on between Magnus and Alec, in which they actually try to make plans for a first date. Now, we've heard about this first date for a long time now, but Alec gets called away. Magnus suddenly gets involved in the affairs of the Clave versus the Downworlders. Yet again, when Raphael shows up at his door badly injured, who we know that Raphael is not on the best terms with Simon right now. He kind of, you know, basically warned Simon that he's going to come after him, and he had actually been tortured by Aldertree with a UV light laser in order to get information about Camille's whereabouts, and that was a really well done scene, because it really did show how far Aldertree is willing to go. I mean, he will do anything to get information out of someone, even if it means torturing them, and basically following more attacks on Mundanes, and after he was unable to tell Aldertree anything, the other man made sure he was left with plenty of evidence of his interrogation, and I think it's because Raphael didn't really know anything about that. I think he genuinely didn't know, and Magnus begins to heal Raphael, even going so far as to say that Raphael's like a son to him, and that he believes part of why Aldertree actually hurt him was actually to punish Magnus for his role in the whole Alec and Jace situation in the previous episodes, and I thought that was interesting to see, that he actually did that to punish Magnus, because yeah, Magnus did do something that he's really not allowed to do. You know, Aldertree told Magnus specifically that they will handle the matter, but Magnus overruled them. You know, he still took care of Alec, and I like that Magnus is kind of blaming himself for this, because I mean, again, Aldertree, as we know, is a very, he's a very, meticulous kind of guy. This is someone who, you know, likes to keep things in order and wants to make sure things get done his way, and Raphael asks him to help bring Camille to the Clave, but Magnus is reluctant. Remember, of course, they had a relation for a very long time, and he knows how manipulative and controlling she can be, but Raphael doesn't deliver her to the Clave within 12 hours. He told that he and his clan will be burned alive, so Magnus really has no choice. You know, we know how tight he is with Raphael, and just then Simon, who's actually been judging, trying to get the box of Camille's he found open, he plans with his family, shows up to also ask Magnus for help in finding the vampire, because we know, I think Simon knew that that was going to come back in the forefront, so he and Raphael almost come to blows. We know that Raphael's ready to beat the shit out of him, and Magnus actually does cool them down. I like that Magnus was actually the mediator here, and I like seeing these three work together. Again, I've said it before, I think this is definitely more closer to what Simon should be doing. Not that I didn't like his stuff last week week. I just felt like this went more with this plot for the season, but Raphael claims that basically Simon reveals the box, and Raphael claims it's in Camille's grave dirt, and this is important because it actually can be used to summon her. Now, that's something that I think we're going to go back to next week, especially when we get to the ending. That's definitely something I think that's going to come back in the forefront, but he cuts Simon's hand since her blood is needed to open it, and sure enough, it actually opens to reveal the dirt. So really interesting stuff there where that's going, but there still is more to this. Because during a conversation on the deck with Simon, Magnus reveals that part of why he's so reluctant to turn Camille in, despite the last heinous crimes against mundanes, is that when he hits a very low point in his life in which he almost committed suicide, we find out, Camille actually saved him from this. So now it makes sense why he has that bond with Camille, because it didn't really make a ton of sense to me. It just seemed like Camille was easy to manipulate him, and that's really what was going on. But again, the writers are doing such a great job with furthering these characters, and I don't think we've ever had any inkling that Magnus was suicidal, and that Magnus wasn't ever, as flamboyant and confident as he is, because, there was a time when he wasn't, and I like that we found that out here. He talks about how it's not so easy to turn on someone when they've done something like that for you, even if they can't change, and I think it's definitely something that Simon is going to start to realize with Clary. No matter what Clary does, I think Clary is someone who, she's the one that made Simon the vampire that he is. And that's why I don't think Simon will ever get to turn on Clary. And I don't know if they're foreshadowing that Clary's going to do something really bad to Simon, but I could very well see that happening. It just seems like that is a very good example of foreshadow, and I'm interested in seeing what's going to happen there. But he sends Simon and Raphael on an errand together, basically to patch things up, but also something he needs in order to summon Camille. Instead, he actually summons and traps her all on her own in order to talk to her in private. Again, because there's a lot of unresolved feelings between them, and she really does just try to convince him that he will always love her, and that she's the only one who will always be able to love him. But honestly, you can kind of see where she's coming from here, because she was the one who was able to save him, that she was the one who made him as confident as he really is. So you can kind of see where she's coming from here, but she clearly doesn't feel remorse for her crimes at all. She's not really upset about what she did, and ultimately Magnus does make the decision to send her somewhere, which is trapped in a portal, and it sort of sounds like he said Idris, so it's likely that she'll be put on trial before the Clave after all. So I like that Magnus didn't give in to Camille at this point. He actually, knew to put his foot down. He knew that for once, she's not going to have, the upper hand. She actually isn't going to get close to him. He actually shut her down. I like the way it was done, but I also like the way this really did further Magnus's development, because I think his character development, as good as the character as Magnus has been, it's been kind of stagnant. It really has, and I think this season they're doing a really good job of furthering him as a character, not just making him this cliche. They're actually giving him a backstory, and I'm really liking where they're going with him. I like that he was able to conjure Camille, something he's been wanting to do for a very long time. He's been wanting to take her down for a long time, and finally, after so many years of just putting up with her shit over and over again, even though he really didn't have feelings for her, he finally was able to shut her down. It truly is a very satisfying moment that I was very happy to see in Magnus' story. But now, guys, we get to the really big stuff of what you guys want me to talk about, because that's not even the big thing in this episode. I mean, as big as Jace and Magnus and Alec were, the big stuff in this episode by far has to do with Clary, Alec, and Izzy. Their stuff is insane. I mean, it starts off really simple, because we see Clary, she's facing an important decision in the episode. Basically, the entire Clave is dealing with a new threat to them and to mundanes. Basically, we find that Jocelyn reveals to Clary that she's been reassigned to Idris, and this is very early on that she tells her this, and that she's asked her daughter to go with her. And this is a big change for Clary, because Clary really is starting to make a life here. But as we know, Clary's been questioning where she really fits in, since the season really started. We've seen her rebel a lot. We've seen her go off, thinking she could be an artist. She really doesn't know where she fits in, so this kind of seems like a no-brainer to her. Before Clary can really talk about it with her, Alec and Izzy walk in, informing that there's actually been a demon attack against a mundane downtown, and she's called away. So this seems like a pretty simple mission, that they're going to have to take down this demon and whatnot, but Luke manages to keep the other police officers away, while Izzy, Alec, and Clary investigate the mundane's body. Again, I like the way that Luke is able to manage all this, the way he's able to, keep the police officers away and make sure this is something that, the Institute needs to do, because not everything's going to be solved by the police, which was clearly attacked, we see, by a demon. So Clary and Alec break off to look for the demon together. We think we're dealing with like a simple possession storyline, which I actually really like. I don't think we've seen a possession storyline in Shadowhunters before. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't really think Season 1 touched upon that. Season 1, we touched upon a lot of things, but I don't think... I mean, the Clave was definitely in there. That was always a threat. Magnus was even a threat at one point. But I don't recall us dealing with a possession storyline. That was actually really cool to see. Again, it reminds us that this show is everything. You know, there's vampires, there's werewolves, there's witches, there's warlocks. All those kind of things are true. And this episode really reminds us of that. He gives her, basically, we see Clary and Alec break off to look for the demon together. Even though we know that these two don't really get along at all, I like that he actually did agree to work with her. And she's quite surprised about this, that he's actually willing to... you know, listen to her and give her the benefit of the doubt. And he gives her a new rune that will help her see a demon's heat signature. It's a little overwhelming to her senses at first because there's a lot to deal with, but she quickly adjusts because she does. And eventually they find a girl covered in blood with no memory of how it got there. And Alec explains to Clary that she clearly has a possession hangover, but the demon is nowhere to be found. But when the first mundane body is brought back to the Institute, a strange black cloud of smoke escapes it, makes its way into a nearby vent, and we're not sure really what that's about or how no one was able to catch that, but that was definitely interesting to see. So we know we're dealing with something much greater than we think we are. You know, this isn't just some possession storyline. There's a lot more to it. And knowing that demon is out there, just like last week when the whole episode was building up to Alec getting to, you know, for Jace getting to Alec, this whole episode is building up with who is going to get possessed. You know that someone's going to get possessed in any second. You know the demon's out there, and it really heightens the tension as they've been doing pretty much all season. So the body's been found within the Institute itself. The others realize that the demon is on the loose within the building and apparently has advanced cloaking abilities, and this really starts to put the Institute on high alert because everyone's freaking out that, holy shit, we could get possessed at any second. So this new trait they feel has come out of Valentine's insane experiments. They feel this is all Valentine's doing, which it very well could be. Again, we don't know if this is just another trap to get Valentine closer to them, but they believe that the demon possesses a person that forces them to act on dark feelings with violent urges, that any sort of dark feeling they had, they solve it with violence, and it's imperative they find and stop it before it hurts someone else. But they actually don't act quickly enough. Izzy and Clary look together. They have a heart-to-heart about Clary's choice regarding Idris, and I like these two working together. I like seeing them talk about what Clary wants to do, because there's a lot of pros and cons here. You know, Clary could leave and find a new life and finally find her purpose and work with her mother, who we know she's wanted to have a relationship with for a while now, but really hasn't been able to because they've been too focused on finding Jace. But at the same time, there's still so much unfinished business at the Institute. You know, she doesn't know where Jace is. She'd be leaving behind Izzy. She'd be leaving behind Alec. People who she's starting to get close with. She'd be leaving behind what she thinks is best for the Institute, which we know that Clary is really the one who wants to put the Institute back into shape, and there's so much that she would be leaving behind. There's so much on the line here, and again, the way they set that all up, I just thought was very well done, the way they really did go in depth with this choice, and I really do love Izzy and Clary's friendship. I'm really loving the way that's blossoming, but Lydia's sent to look with another Shadowhunter. I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I forget Lydia's on this show. She has stuff to do, definitely, but she just seems like such an afterthought, but I thought this was a really awesome scene with her. She's sent to look with another Shadowhunter who's quickly possessed by the demon. She manages to fight him off until Alec arrives and saves her, and I like that he still sort of has a friendship with her, even though obviously he's gay, but she's badly wounded in the attack. The demon actually escapes again, and this is when things get absolutely insane. Because Clary goes to Jocelyn in her room, explaining she doesn't feel she can go with her to Idris, that she'd just be leaving her entire life behind, and she wants to stay on her own, and feels that there are people there who need her. And in some ways, she doesn't really need Jocelyn. We've very much seen this, that she doesn't need her. Jocelyn has a much different way of doing things, and I think in some ways it's kind of holding back Clary. I mean, she hasn't, you know, think about it. She's tried to kill her brother 2 times. She hasn't let Clary get involved many times. She's just really holding her back, and I think Clary is really starting to feel that that, you know, as much as she likes her mother, she needs to do this on her own. And her mother seems to understand, though it's clearly a tough moment for both of them. You know, you can tell that Jocelyn really does want to get involved, but she just can't really do anything. And when Clary's wanting the institute later, she finds Alec, he's covered in blood, with no memory of what happened, and she follows bloody footsteps to a nearby room, and she finds her mother, and this is when things get crazy, because Alec is covered in blood, he has no memory of what happened, and she sees these bloody footsteps, and the whole time I'm thinking, okay, I thought they killed off, you know, like, the demon girl, or something was gonna happen there, but the worst possible thing could happen, where she finds Jocelyn dead. Yes, Jocelyn is dead, and I'm shocked that they killed off Jocelyn, but she and Alec watched the video later, and it actually confirms that he was the one to kill Jocelyn while he was possessed by the demon. So yes, Alec was actually the one to kill her, and that makes sense, especially when they said that any sort of dark reasoning, you know, he obviously does have a lot of animosity for Jocelyn because Jocelyn didn't really care about him. When he was in that coma, she didn't care about him. She wanted to focus on finding Jace. She didn't care about really saving Alec, and that's something that he really does kind of hold a grudge against her for. Also, for not letting him get involved. So, in doing so, because he was possessed by the demon, that got her to kill him, and, I mean, that got him to kill her, and it really did make a ton of sense there. So, somehow Clary's able to continue working with Alec. I'm guessing because she really had no choice. She just had to kind of, you know, do what she could. But they eventually come upon Izzy, who attacks him for killing Jocelyn. They quickly realize that she's possessed now, and the three of them fight. And when Izzy has Alec pinned, before she can deal a devastating blow, Clary stabs her in the back shoulder from behind, forcing the demon out, but not administering a fatal wound. And she strikes it with what seems to be the soul sword or something like it, and this finally destroys the demon, and we get to the ending where Izzy and Alec embrace. He heals her where Clary sits, pretty much in a complete daze. I mean, she has no idea what to do, and she's not saying anything. She's just sitting there in complete silence. Her mouth is open, and Jace, Aldertree, and Simon then arrive a little late. Aldertree seems to disappear. Jace goes to the twins. He wants to help them. And again, it shows that Jace knows that as much as he wants to go to Clary, he can't really have a relationship with her right now. And Simon, however, goes to embrace and comfort Clary. And, I really like that scene, showing that Simon, you know, and Clary, they can be together, but Jace can't. And Alec takes Izzy to get help. And, obviously because she's injured, Jace looks on while Clary cries on Simon, eventually following the siblings that he was raised with in exiting, and that is the way this episode comes to a very devastating end. But let's just get into this episode and where I think we're going to go from here, because holy shit. So, wow, what an episode. I mean, so much happened here with furthering the plot, and so much happened with the characters, and I know I said this is a very character-driven season, and I still stick by that, because this episode was very character-driven. First of all, I'm not going to get mad at Alec for what he did. I know a lot of people said that, oh, how could they do this to Alec? How could Alec have done something like this? Guys, he was possessed, remember. Keep in mind that he was possessed, and anyone that he had animosity for, he would just kill. You know, if it was, say, this was Aldertree, I think we would be in the same situation. I think Aldertree would have been killed. I'm glad Aldertree's not killed, because I actually really think Aldertree provides this, like I said, shield to the show, and this adult figure that the show didn't really have last season that I really am liking that they have this season. But Jocelyn dead is extremely shocking. I can't believe that she's actually dead. And Clary, it's understandable why she doesn't know how to come, you know, how to really come to terms with this, because this was someone who, you know, she hasn't seen a long time. She was in cryogenesis for a long time. Now, when her mother's alive, quickly after, she is killed. And this is something that Clary is obviously shocked about. And I think Clary, you know, she was ready to say goodbye to her mother because she knew she was going off to Idris, but her mother would still be there. You know, they have cell phones, they have ways to keep in touch, but now her mother's dead. It's a completely different story. Now she knows that there really is no way of going back to her mother, and it's a very sad scene. I think it's definitely going to take Clary a while to get over this, I have to say. But I think the one person who's going to comfort her most is actually Simon. I think Simon's going to be there for Clary. I think he's going to get her through this, and if there's one thing that last scene shows is that Clary and Simon, those are the two that can be together. Jace and Clary just cannot happen at this point. And Jace's arc in general is just really heartbreaking at this point. I mean, Jace further, you can tell that he is just going further and further into Valentine's manipulation. He's kind of accepting it, that there's really no way to get away from it, and I understand why. It's completely understandable why Jace is realizing that no matter what he does, Valentine will always be out there. Valentine will always be manipulating him. There's really nothing he can do to get away from him, and it's really sad to see, definitely. I really did feel bad for Jason's situation, but also because we know he does have feelings for Clary, and he does really care about her, and in general, he really does care about the Institute. He still has that good in him, but he knows that he also has that bad, that bad blood in him, and that eventually that's going to come out, and he's going to do something very bad and very unforgivable. And I think Jace definitely knows that him and Clary, again, they can't be together. They need to be as far away from each other as possible, and I like the way the show is doing that, because it makes us want Jace and Clary to interact a lot more. It makes us want to see these two interact. It makes us want to see them have chemistry, but in reality, we know it can't really happen, and the way the show is really relying on that, I think it's a very ballsy move. So many people love Clary and Jason. I think it's very smart that they're actually keeping them apart from each other, because again, they have their own character journeys, especially now with what Clary's gone through. I have no idea where she's going to go after this. Honestly, I really have no idea. It looks like next week they're going to try to exorcise her mother or something like that, but I don't really know how that's really going to work. I mean, the demon's dead, and I think that definitely is going to play into what we found out with Camille, that basically there is that box that could summon her. Basically, I think that definitely is going to come back into play somehow, but we'll have to see what ends up happening with that. I think that's definitely why they mentioned that. And like I said, I do think they're saying this idea that Simon is going to do something very bad to Clary, or Clary's going to do something very bad to Simon. I think we're definitely getting into that, and I don't know really where that's going to go. This was particularly a great episode for Magnus, though. I really did love what we saw of Magnus. This might be my favorite Magnus episode yet, and it's mainly because Magnus finally did something that, one, had nothing to do with Alec, which I was very happy about. I like that this didn't have to do with his desire for Alec. 2, was completely on his own actions. For the first time in his life, Magnus decided that he's not just going to give in to Camille. He's not just going to listen to her. He's going to do something about this. He doesn't want her in his life. He never cared about her. He never really, wanted to be with her in any sort of way romantically. He kind of just let her manipulate him, and he's tired of it. He doesn't want it anymore, and I like the way that finally he told her no, that I'm not going to take this from you. I'm not just going to let you manipulate me over and over again. And I like that he doesn't really feel, she's really not upset for what she did. You can definitely tell she's not at all upset, because, yeah, she did do a lot of shit. I mean, she is the reason why Simon turned into a vampire, and I like the way he finally made a decision to send her away in that portal, and I'm sure she's going to get out of it somehow, but definitely, I like that he was able to get away from her for the time being. I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen there. It doesn't seem like there's more regrets for what he did, and I like that. I like that he doesn't really have a ton of regret. Izzy, as well, is very badly damaged, we see. There are a lot of scars, definitely there, both mentally and physically. I mean, especially with her having this realization that her brother is a killer, and her brother killed Jocelyn. I mean, how is she really going to react to that? And especially Luke. How's Luke going to react? I mean, Luke, he had this bond with Jocelyn. He cared so much for her. Everything he did last season was because of Jocelyn, really. Everything he's done in the show is kind of because of Jocelyn. So how is he really going to react when he finds out the one woman that he cares about most is actually dead? It's going to be devastating to think about, but really, that's something I'm definitely interested in getting into, is what's going to happen there. And I also really love that Aldertree still remains to be a threat in the show, but he also remains to be, I think, someone who really does know what's good for the Institute. He really does know what's good for them. He has an idea of what he really wants to do, and I like that Jace knows that Jace actually kept him alive for that reason, because he knows in reality that Aldertree really is trying to help the Institute. And I really am interested in seeing, what's going to happen there, where that's going to go. Overall, guys, there are so many places the show can go from here. After something like this really does prove how great this season really is, how much it's embracing its darkness, how much it's focusing on its characters, and how developed it's really gone with this story. And even though we've seen Jocelyn for only 5 episodes, I'm completely fine with that. Jocelyn was never going to be a main character. Jocelyn was never going to be a huge part of this show, because it always was about the Shadowhunters, and Jocelyn never did what Clary wanted to do. So in reality, it's kind of a good thing what happened to Clary. But after this, there really is no telling what could happen. But this is by far the most shocking direction Shadowhunters taking so far. I don't think this happened in the book. I really don't think it happened. If it did, then okay, but I don't think this happened in the book. The only thing I'm a bit upset about is that Jocelyn clearly did have information about Jace that we didn't know about, and it definitely makes me think this isn't the end. I think we're going to see Jocelyn again. I think Clary somehow is going to get her back. I don't think that Jocelyn is going to stay dead. I think she's definitely going to come back in some form. How she is, I don't really know, but this definitely is one of the most shocking things Shadowhunter has done. It's by far the best episode of the season. Best episode of Shadowhunters without a doubt that we've had, definitely. It shows how far the characters have come, and I am definitely going to give Shadowhunters Season 2, Episode 4, A Day of Wrath, a 4.75 out of 5 or an A. Guys, this is the episode. This is the episode that proves how great Shadowhunters truly has been this season. It shows how far these characters have come. It shows the direction that the show is really going, how much the show is evolving, how much it's really focusing on things that are interesting, and really finally giving characters something to do that doesn't just involve, you know, love triangles, things like that. These characters are going on their individual journeys. They're a lot more interesting than that. The show's finally embracing it, and I'm really loving the direction it's going. And one thing's for sure, after this, there really is no telling what can happen this season. And after a tragedy like this, it makes the show so much more unpredictable. It makes the show, in my opinion, so much more worthwhile, and definitely makes me a lot more interested in seeing where we're gonna go. So overall, guys, I'm going to review this episode of Shadowhunters. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode overall. I know there's a lot to talk about, definitely, so definitely give me your thoughts on all of that. But that's this video. Hope you guys enjoy it. We'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for the Oscar nominations, as we know, are in fact coming out tonight. Today. So I will be doing a video on my predictions for the Oscars, my reactions to nominations. So definitely look forward to that, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.